discovered letters between the pair, confirming their involvement in something big. The last letter from Rayla held cryptic warnings about the Eastern Union desperately trying and failing to replicate a certain cube. This meant nothing to Olivia, until the dream. Rayla was worried that Kaiser was after something aggressively. The last words in the letter stated, "There's still time before he gets here. I still have time." Olivia immediately left for Prehevir, and she's been having nightmares about the place the whole way there. But they don't feel like normal dreams, especially after everything she just saw. Perhaps they were more like a warning. Olivia is a very interesting character. She's able to pick special herbs in the forest that can be made into incredibly potent poisons or powerful medicine. However, in combat, she's unable to attack unless she has a wheelchair equipped. Many enemies will knock her to the ground, so unless she can rely on items or magic, she's quite vulnerable. If she's your main character, you start with the wheelchair equipped. You can use C to swap in and out of it. What you'll need to do is the chair can't go upstairs. Also, Olivia needs her arms to move. If she loses one, she becomes agonizingly slow. If she loses both, it's game over. This means she's a bit more delicate and has a harder time avoiding enemies, but the offensive power of her poisons is a sight to behold. Find some armed guards and get a second party member, and she becomes really powerful. If she's not the main character, though, it turns out Olivia doesn't have a wheelchair. Someone was supposed to meet her with one at the train station, and she'll be stranded here until it can be found. Karen levels her pistol at the rifleman and calls out for him to stop. There's something wrong with his face. "There's no other way. He demands it," croaks the stranger. "It's Jubilee. Paint the town red." The man is clearly out of his mind. She calls to him, telling him to think for himself and not do something just because he's been told. The rifleman hesitates for a moment, which is all that Karen needs to get away. She heads east toward the lake until she's sure she's not being followed, then up into what the map refers to as Old Town. It's a maze of wooden shanties, thick with the smell of death and rotting fish. Even by wartime standards, this is bad. And there's something else. People stand around outside in various states of undress, picking at their burnt skin until it tears away in ragged sheets, revealing raw and bloody flesh beneath. She calls out to a few, trying to figure out what's going on, but she can't get a coherent answer. Everyone she asks is delirious, muttering and weeping about the light that burns as it freezes, and how there's something under their skin that wants out. Was this mustard gas? Or maybe some sort of psychoactive chemical weapon? Whatever caused the shared hallucination on the train might have been deployed here too. The Bremen Empire has become notorious for these sorts of atrocities against civilians, and the reporter can think of no other logical explanation. Not all of them are doctors.
Ma nemam pojma.
Thank you, kind of.
Is it? O stariću, neću znati da li ćeš za mnom zaplakati koja. Ma brada pramena da mada. Pa... Nenadović je mutiran full.
colossal. A man with half his skin hanging around his waist rushes at her, arms outstretched. Nobody should be able to survive an injury like this, much less while up and running around. Karen escapes to a nearby building. The place is unsettling to say the least. It opens into earthen tunnels that seem to lead all over the old town, with trash strewn about. Why have these people been living like rats? In the dark, she spots a boy. It's somebody from the train. She calls out to him, but he startles and flees in panic. There's a strange altar here, and other, more worrying signs. A manifold bolted to the wall, a hacksaw, and a severed arm. Old Town is a world gone mad. The townspeople wander the streets, gibbering about a festival and looking to hack apart anyone they can with knives, sickles, and whatever else is at hand. Their faces are twisted into expressionist grimaces of pain and rage, the flesh puckered and deformed. Marina's a practiced occultist. She knows the secrets that hide behind the veil of daily life. She can even perform a few feats of magic herself. But something like this, on such a massive scale, out in the open, with no apparent cause, it's unheard of. The dream was fascinating. Even in a dream, even through a mediator, even at a vast distance, the chance to meet one of the old gods is a rare and incredible thing. Unheard of. But how quickly the bloom comes off the rose. Rare's green light is said to burn away the human filth, revealing a deeper truth. The great scholar Enki Ankarian argues that it's the other way around, that the filth of reality might be the truth, and that Rare only reveals the lie beneath it. Whichever is true or false, it's clear that something terrible
S.W.Frost is now live streaming Elden Ring. No digital art offers. Thank you. Kinda bad day for headache.
Nearly as unsettling to the changes to the populace are changes to the town. It's only been a few years since Marina left, and the place didn't used to be this haphazard. The original houses, the ones she remembered, are mostly still there,
Lurks.
buried under the rickety new construction.
Welcome to my channel.
This was always the poor part of town, but in a quaint and provincial way. Where did all these ugly wooden shacks come from? Why are they built so poorly? They don't even look fit for human habitation. The gates into the city are locked, but that doesn't stop one of the passengers, a man named August, from simply leaping over them in a stunning display of acrobatics. He gives Marina a cheeky salute as he disappears up the stairs. And then he's gone. What's he up to? Looking at her map, Marina decides to head west, into the Maiden Forest. There might be a way around. Now comes the thorniest part of this analysis. There are 3 different things that can happen here depending on who goes where first. These events are mutually exclusive, and each illustrates an important missing story. To really get into what's going on in Preheview, it's necessary to do multiple playthroughs, as you can't see it all in one run. Karen makes her way through the old town, evading several of the crazed locals. In a muddy yard, a Bremen soldier and his horse lie dead on the ground, though what killed them is anyone's guess. The reporter fishes a diary out of the soldier's pocket. Mostly, it's the sort of thing she's used to reading, accounts of troop movements, battlefield intrigues. The final entry is worrying, though. The soldier describes his shock at the state of Preheview, which still follows religious practices as old as the Fellowship itself. Crucifixes are set up around the city, not the little decorative ones that people hang above their beds, but the big kind, the sort they used to do human sacrifices on. Eventually, Karen comes to the mayor's manor. The people in charge may still be sane here, and if not, it's at least a good landmark to orient herself by. The place seems well appointed at first, but up close, everything looks a bit poor. The classical busts are on closer inspection rudimentary attempts at replicating fine art, and the paintings are all drab and dreary. Upstairs, she finds a man in an empty kitchen. He's from the train, right? He's acting strangely, sniffing the air and complaining about the ticking of an unseen clock. Karen has to resort to shouting to snap him out of his stupor. This is Henrik. He says there's something wrong with this place, and that it was affecting him. That's a worrying thing for a guy to say, especially as he doesn't immediately leave when he realizes what's happening. But Henrik's on a mission. The train's not going anywhere, and no help is coming anytime soon. So the best thing he can do is feed everybody. The mayor's house is bound to have supplies. He just can't find them, and he's not leaving until he's got something to show for his effort. Karen begrudgingly decides to help. A few rooms over, she discovers a dark priest engaged in prayer. Finally, someone sane. The father ignores her words, advancing on her with one arm outstretched. Now that he's closer, she can see that there's something wrong with him, too. His skin is dry and cracked, looking almost mummified, and he doesn't respond to her words at all. The Dark Priest is sort of like a mini-boss. He has a coin flip attack that can end the fight immediately. You'll wake up, flogged bloody and nailed to a cross with your legs gone. Time will advance until it's night, and August, one of the other contestants, will have to come along and save you. If you have a rifle, you can take out one or both of his arms to soften him up before the fight. He telegraphs the grab by grinning beforehand, so just guard and you'll be fine. His right hand casts Hurting, which can sever limbs, and the left casts Pyromancy trick, which can light you on fire. This is a pretty deadly combo, as you'll usually be too focused on getting rid of the right hand to avoid the damage over time debuff, and the fact that you have to waste turns guarding so that he doesn't grab you really allows the damage to add up. Karen ducks around the corner and finds a hatch in the floor. The strange priest does not follow her down the ladder. Dark priests hold on to all kinds of creepy old religious beliefs, but the Vatican's toned most of it way down over the centuries. Is this guy just affected by the same madness as the rest of the town, or is he up to some weird occult business? Karen's a pragmatic woman with little love for anyone in power, but aren't priests supposed to help people? What the hell is going on? She manages to snag a set of keys so that she can search the place. The rest of the manor is in disarray, but there's nothing too unusual, despite the ominous presence of another shackle in the basement, next to a door that won't open. There are food supplies down here, though. The mayor must have stockpiled them when he heard things were going south. There's enough to keep a household fed for weeks. She helps Henrik gather up whatever he can, and the pair head back to the train. It'll be goulash for dinner, he says. A local favorite. Marina manages to fend off an attack from a pair of headless wolves that spew bile as they try to run her down. Wounded, she stumbles onward until she finds a truck. Is this an army vehicle? It looks like someone's tried to get into it and broken the lock in the process. There's a hatch in the ground nearby, surrounded by barbed wire. If this is some kind of military facility, maybe there's someone inside who can help. Even getting arrested for trespassing would beat getting torn apart by crazy townspeople. The hatch, as it turns out, leads down into a sprawling network of tunnels. There are months-old newspapers left out on the desks, suggesting that this is not a facility built by the Bremen invaders, but rather one that the Eastern Army abandoned as they retreated from Bohemia. Still, this might be a good place to hide, and it might even have guns lying around. The idea of picking one up is uncomfortable. Marina's the kind of person who certainly doesn't want to kill anybody, but things being how they are, it might be better to be prepared. Unfortunately, there are no weapons here. Makes sense. The army probably doesn't want civilians wandering around and finding that kind of thing. It's mostly old tools and clunky machinery. This hat on the floor looks out of place. Tanaka gasps and struggles hopelessly as the tall figure pins him down. A bone saw chews through the flesh of his neck, blood spilling everywhere until his head rips free and his body hits the ground with a soft thud. Marina shoves a metal crate into the doorway, blocking the figure in. She only gets a brief look at the smiling killer, but he looked like a clown. He's trapped where he is, at least for now. She could run, but it's no better outside, and there might still be somebody down here who needs help. The occultist fills a generator with gas, powering on the elevator, and heads further down the tunnel. With something, somewhere, is banging on the sheet metal walls. Oh. The creature looks like a hulking man with something like an elephant's trunk, and as it shrieks and trumpets, mucus dripping from its snout, Marina feels a crushing pain in her head. She runs, circling around the creature in the maze of tunnels until she reaches the elevator and heads down. There's a burst of static in her ears, and she sees the flickering, ghostly apparition of a young woman. It's the green girl. She runs down the hall as if urging Marina to follow. The beast from above bursts through the wall to give chase, but this time there's nowhere to run. There's a dead soldier on the ground, but checking for a gun reveals only a key and a letter. The occultist mutters an incantation to Grogaroth over the corpse and it rises, born again as an undead ghoul. At her command, it throws itself into battle with the monster. It doesn't last long under its pummeling fists, but it buys Marina enough time to get away as the beast smashes the zombie to the ground and destroys the fragile spell holding it upright. Marina gets a brief look at some kind of a machine with what looks like blue moths fluttering around it, but there's no time to check it out. She ducks into a side chamber only to discover a ritual room? She knows what all this stuff is for. That's a rare circle in the floor, but why would... The metal and concrete of the bunker has been replaced by wood and unending darkness. Where the computer once stood now lies a fleshy creature like a fish with a snake in its mouth. Rare is one of the more mysterious gods, seldom showing much to mortals at all. Marina's never heard of a rare sigil serving as a portal, and she has no idea where it's taken her, or if she's even gone anywhere at all. It's only as she stops to catch her breath that she's able to think about the monster that chased her there. It was hulking, muscular, built like a man. But those overalls, didn't they belong to the engineer? Shognar is a terrible foe this early in the game. It can hit you with a debuff that will kill you in 2 turns, it has a lot of hit points, it punches very hard, and it has an instant kill attack where it just grabs you and crushes your flesh. The best thing to do is retreat. Though, this is your only chance to move. If you went to the manor and saved Henrik, it might be worth waiting to come here until you have a full party and can fight the monster. On defeat, Shognar gives the player the Caressing Soul. That's because this monster is the mutated form of Abella, the engineer. Unless you're playing as her, Abella will always come straight to this bunker. If you didn't show up to accompany her, she will become Shognar. The astute of you might recognize Shognar as a creation of Frank Belknap Long, but per the developer, the name is merely a nod to a visual similarity, rather than any kind of meaningful reference. So, how did this happen? Well, remember the woodsman? The conversation with the new gods in the first game reveals that his parasitic appendage might be something that attached itself to him rather than a part of his body. It can skitter around on its little facehugger legs and attack independently of the woodsman, and once it attacks the player, it's stuck on for good. The creature, again, per the developer, is based on Half-Life's head crab, and there must be more than one of them. It would appear that Abella was parasitized by one of these little critters, and then, either due to its influence or more likely some other force, the conjoined pair mutated into the monster known as Shognar. As for why this happens, or why it would take this particular form, well, more on that later. Marina makes her way through the shabby wooden walls of the Nightmare. The place looks exactly like the collective dream of the workshop, and what's more, it reminds her of the strange constructions she saw in Old Town. Could there be some connection? The monsters here are predictably even stranger. Big Venus flytrap-looking things buried in foul-smelling mounds of dirt. They emerge to reveal a second, much more suggestive Venus flytrap mouth and dangerous scythe-blade arms. Buried in the mound, if one cares to check, are rust-colored pearls, flawless and beautiful to behold. Eventually, Marina climbs up a ladder and finds herself back in the bunker. Half dazed by the shock of the incident and the toll the spellcasting took on her sanity, she climbs the ladder and back to the surface, breathless and shaking. The first thing she sees are a pair of back boots and the barrel of a pistol. The Bremen lieutenant towering over her motions for her to come on up. This is Pavel Yudin, a Voronian who found his way into Kaiser's army. He makes a few lewd remarks as he leers at Marina and suggests that she stay very still if she doesn't want to get shot. Luckily, it turns out that what Pav really wants is a way into the city. The gate is barred by 2 locks, and he's come here to get one of the keys. But he won't take it from Marina. Instead, he charges her with getting the other and opening the gate. He tells her to be a good girl and heads off. Unfortunately, because we saved Henrik, we're stuck taking the long way around. The other key is never found on this route. Instead, Henrik hands over a key he found at the manor, which sends the player up through a very gross sewer maze if they want to get into the city. So now let's rewind and check out scenario B. In this scenario, Karen never went to the manor, instead just snooping around Old Town, and Marina reached the bunker first. As Marina opens the hatch in the ground, a tall, fit, red-headed woman comes running up. This is the engineer from the train. What's she doing out here? Abella, as it turns out, is scavenging the forest for train parts. Well, that makes about as much sense as anything else today, Marina supposes. And so the 2 women descend into the tunnels together. There, they encounter the clown, who kills Tanaka. Running from him, they activate the elevator, head into the pit, and find a strange machine which is apparently called a telectroscope. Abella casually turns it on while messing with the controls, and while it starts up successfully, it's not clear what, if anything, that did. There's no Shognar this time, but they do find a key and a letter along with it. It's from the dead Bremen soldier, addressed to his girl back home. The letter all but confirms that Behevil was Kaiser's target from the start, but it seems the army's rank and file don't understand why. On leaving, they're confronted by Pav, who just as in the other scenario, tells them to find the other key and open the gate. But the women are tired and traumatized after seeing Tanaka die so horribly. They head back to the train and tell the others what they saw, then settle down to rest. Marina is gone when Abella wakes. It's night, and the seats below the train are shivering against the cold. Nobody's seen her at all. Sensing something amiss, Abella makes her way to Old Town. The gates are still shut, but an old beggar sat behind them strikes up a conversation. Apparently, he's still mostly sane and, somehow, still alive. Kaiser's men have barricaded the city, closing all outside access. They killed the old mayor, who'd aligned with the Eastern Army, and took one of his gate keys, the one that Abella recovered in the bunker. The other, he says, should be in the new mayor's possession. We don't have elections here in Old Town, but the new guy just arrived. Eventually, Abella finds the mayor's manor and is cordially told that she's expected for dinner with the master of the house. Jeeves, the butler, advises her not to mention his antlers. Though he has the same twisted features as many of the townspeople, the chief seems far too cultured to engage in their senseless violence. Upstairs, Abella sneaks past the dark creeping fray and manages to find a set of keys. In the mayor's bedroom, she discovers Marina, who's trying to act nonchalant about having been kidnapped and locked away. The two women reunited, Abella makes for the kitchen to see what this dinner invitation is about, but Marina freezes in her tracks. The mayor is a major creep, she says, and she won't go anywhere near him again. Marina hides by the stairs while Abella boldly steps into the kitchen to see what the fuss is all about. This is the gentleman, a monstrous figure with twisted horns and a hideous face. He invites Abella to sit while the pair share a meal. The gentleman says he came to Preheville to sample the local delicacies, but is disappointed with the state of the place. Everybody's gone mad, he says. Nobody wants to talk about art or poetry. Abella stares down at the food in front of her. This is almost certainly human flesh. Luckily, the mayor doesn't seem to notice that she's not eating. Dinner with the gentleman is a conversation in which she must do everything possible to avoid angering Preheville's new mayor. Mentioning his antlers, being vulgar, or general impoliteness are likely to trigger a fight. And he is terribly powerful, easily severing ones with his knife and ripping huge wounds open with his fork. Speaking to him during combat clarifies his motivations quite a bit. Termina is the moon god's deadly festival, and it's been turned on the whole town. But he's not going to play Rare's game. Instead, he's going to live out his final days indulging in whatever wicked hedonism he can, starting with kidnapping and cannibalism, and going who knows where from there. Henrik was an Epicurean, a man with refined taste and a desire to share them with the world. As the gentleman, he's a vulgar parody of his former self. Sure, he was a skirt chaser and maybe a bit of a snob about food, but we never get any indication that he wanted to have a good time at anybody else's expense. The whole reason he even came out here was to do something nice for everyone and impress Abella. Now, she doesn't even recognize him. If defeated, he grants Henrik's suffocated soul, a worthy prize for any character that boosts melee combat skill and allows for 2 superior meals. If dinner goes smoothly, however, the gentleman asks Abella a final question. Is she for Kaiser or against him? She answers truthfully, against, and he gives her the missing key to the city, telling her that he can't do much from his position, but she has his tacit support. As for Marina, she seems unharmed when we find her, but traumatized nonetheless. There's something else here, too. The villagers outside described being infected by a green light that got inside of them and began the change, but Henrik was indoors when he got hit. And just like Abella, he was nowhere near the 3-day time limit. He turned basically immediately. There's a locked room in the basement, accessible only by drawing a Venushka circle in the priest's room. It contains pulsating purple organs that look like they've been tapped. Buckets nearby contain dark, dried mucus that sticks to the bottom. They look very similar to the hearts of the god of the depths in the first game. The green light can change a person, but still from the darkness. It's certainly suspicious that Henrik and Abella can mutate so early in the contest. Neither gets much time to even try to participate before they turn. Shognar is found in Tunnel 7 with that clown, while the gentleman seems to have been chosen by the town itself to be the new mayor. It's something to think about. For now, the women leave the manor in peace, and finally open the gates to the city. Marina's destination is the massive cathedral on the east side of town. Too much time has been wasted now. She must confront her father and discover whether he's alive, still sane, and what truly happened to her mother. But the situation in the city seems no better than outside. The women hear boots running toward them, and a distorted voice shrieking that they're in violation of the High Priest's curfew order. The streets are patrolled primarily by bobbies. These multi-armed monsters resemble an abstract pastiche of a police officer, and catching 3 batons in one turn is enough to kill a healthy character. Alone, they're usually too much to handle. With an ally, the fight is a lot easier. Their arms will regenerate 2 turns after being destroyed, and breaking their legs does nothing to expose their head. The trick is to simply keep attacking their arms until their head eventually stops spinning. A single tap usually defeats them. But your work isn't done. Examine the body and choose to beat it to finish the monster off, or it'll get back up. Outside the church, a gigantic furred creature shreds the bobby to pieces with a pair of spears before leaping off into the night. It's a circle. What the hell is it doing here? Circles are a fictional creature created by a furry artist. A YouTuber named Neko the Circle helped popularize the first game in its very early days, and Miro thanked them with a cameo. In the Fear and Hunger world, circles are a folkloric creature said to inhabit the dark continent of Vinland. Karen would lose her mind if we told her we saw one. Imagine seeing Bigfoot in Prague. Inside, the church is relatively undamaged. 3 effigies are missing from their pedestals at the altar, but otherwise the place is in remarkably decent order. There's a confessional in the east wing, and Marina decides to step inside. To her surprise, someone's on the priest's side. It's not her father's voice, but what the heck. No time like the present to unburden herself and confess her sins. She emerges from the confessional at the same time as the man on the other side. It's not a priest, but Osa, the Abyssinian man from the train. Marina's face goes beet red when she realizes the trick he's pulled, and he bursts into laughter. He apologizes, saying it was too good of an opportunity to pass up, and that he's happy to have learned something about a fellow contestant. Osa is curious about the secrets this land holds beneath its surface, and he has no time to hang around. He bids the women farewell, offering Marina a genuine apology, and wanders off. The Yellow Mages are a cult who follow the great wizard Nasra. In the 5th century, Nasra was a new god and ruled the eastern sanctuaries with an iron fist until the Fellowship rose up to be him. He was last seen 3.5 centuries ago, taking a fight with the embodiment of destruction. It didn't go well for him, and since then his cult nearly died out. But Nasra hasn't left the world just yet. He's fried, scarred, and largely impotent, but Osa has brought him to Kvehekin, though he's been demoted from a party member to an accessory. Most people can't hear his whispers, but if you play as Osa, you'll occasionally get some illuminating comments from him about characters or lore. Osa begins on the opposite end of the magical spectrum from Marina. Where her skills are largely passive and supportive, he is all about raw power and can modify his spells with a Spice Forge skill. Pretty much the only downside to playing as Osa is that he can't use guns. There are a couple of areas that are a really big headache without them, but otherwise, he's easily one of the strongest characters. On the west stairwell, the women discover the mutilated remains they were working with. It's unclear what even happened to him. He's basically just chunks now. He left some notes mentioning where he hid his tools, and sure enough, there's a pair of bolt cutters under the floor. Up in the rafters, strange, brutal creatures pace back and forth like living gargoyles, their arms bound and their flat-topped heads peeled open. They scream about agony and the chorus of Almer as they try to knock the pair off the edge. The trick to the Pillarmen is that one of their abdominals will be breathing slightly. It's very easy to miss the animation. You have to really look closely. Destroy that one, and the creature will die on the next turn. Using the bolt cutter, Abella snaps the chain holding the great chandelier to the ceiling. It crashes down to the floor, breaking open a way to the lower level. The basement is a nightmare, shocking Marina. She grew up here, and while there was always an old dungeon down here, in her memory it was just a disused legacy of a bygone era. Now it's strewn with mangled human body parts and the reek of blood and death. They pass a strange purple snail as they move through the corridor toward a gigantic rare sigil which contains 3 smaller seals. Atop them, a statue of a winged man folded in shame or suffering holding aloft one of the effigies from upstairs. The rare sigil is nothing new, but these seals require some examination. These are real-world symbols, taken from the Ars Goetia, a part of the Lesser Key of Solomon, a 17th century book about demonology. Goetia is one of the 3 most common types of magic known to medieval Europeans, and forms much of the basis for our ideas about demonic pacts and seals today. It was widely considered to be evil witchcraft and denounced by the church and society as evil and unclean. These are the seals of 3 demons from that book: Valapar, Crocel, and Astaroth. All 3 are Dukes of Hell, in the second most powerful position beneath the kings, and can serve as familiar spirits to help a summoner accomplish a certain task. This church is supposed to be dedicated to Almer. To see a sigil of an old god down here will be one thing. But here, their symbol has been used to conceal the signs of 3 demons, which is really beyond the pale. And if we're invoking real-world symbolism, this statue looks like a fallen angel. Crimson Fathers open with a mind control attack that can easily cause a wipe. Mind-controlled characters don't usually deal much damage to party members, but having one of your characters uncontrollable in a fight against an enemy that deals this much damage is not ideal. The general strategy is to take out their knife arm and then go for the other. Attacking their leg tentacles will then expose the head. After a turn or two, they'll morph into their alternate form, going from a snailhead Hulu monster to something right out of the Thing. It seems likely that these are what has been leaving all the chewed-up people parts around. Attempting to speak with the monstrosities reveals that they come from another world in service to an unknown god, but little else. The basement is a sprawling complex completed with a shortcut elevator back to Old Town. It would seem that the church has been preying on the poor, abducting them via this elevator and using them for their evil rituals. Eventually, the two find another rare circle. As in the bunker, stepping on it transports them to what appears to be a shoddy wooden replica of the church in a void of infinite black. A strange girl in a black pinafore stands atop an altar, observing a pulsating column of human flesh. The vague shapes of several people seem to have merged together under the dead-eyed gaze of an old man's face at the top. She turns toward the pair and gasps in surprise. "Marina! I knew you'd come for me." This is Salmon, a young woman who went to school with Marina and became obsessed with her. Marina has no idea who she is. She claims to know Marina and all of her secrets. In an increasingly panicked and frustrated tone, she insists that she's met Marina many times, that they have an intimate relationship. She says she knew all about how much Marina hated her father, and that's why she came here and killed him. Now, the two of them
Mislim čak što više da ostavljam sve, idem krvet. U zdravlje, borite se, čujemo se. Ćao. Anyway, time for bed. Take care.